Zurich is mobilizing for climate action through the Zurich Forest Project to restore a portion of Brazil's Atlantic forest to its natural state in partnership with the local non-profit Instituto Terra. Each Zurich employee worldwide is gifted one tree.
That tree is a call for action to each one as an individual to continue doing what the planet is asking for.
The restored forest will be self-sustaining and biodiverse. Join us as the journey continues. We all have a role to play in protecting our planet for future generations. Whether our contribution is large or small, it's a choice we make every day.
I pledge to reduce waste,
to move to a more plant-based diet.
I pledge to use less plastic and start recycling more.
Curbing climate change is the greatest challenge of our time, and it will take all of us to stop it. At Zurich, we believe individual contributions can add up to something much bigger. That's why we want to inspire and empower our customers, employees, and our communities to take action with us. Because together, we achieve more.
A company like us has to act, has to do real things. The climate can be improved if we all start doing the things that we can and we want to do.
Tackling climate change needs allies. Zurich is mobilizing for climate action through the Zurich Forest Project, launched in Brazil in 2020. We have partnered with photographer Sebastião Salgado and his wife Lélia, founders of non-profit Instituto Terra, to help restore a portion of Brazil's Atlantic forest to its natural state.
We must come back to our planet. If you want to survive as a species, we must come back to the planet. We must rebuild parts of the planet that we destroyed.
The Zurich Forest Project aims to reverse the damage inflicted by decades of cattle farming and logging. It helps to make environmental topics like nature restoration and biodiversity more tangible. A forest, Salgado says, is not a single being. It's built over many years, tree by tree. A tree is a shelter for other creatures. It holds the soil together and catches rainwater. It's perfectly attuned to the seasons.
The environment, the biodiversity is local. We are planting a forest in Brazil. We are using local species because the biodiversity, the ants, the termites, these insects, these snakes, the birds, they love only the essences of the region. We must replant the forest. We must rebuild part what we destroy.
We decided to give a tree to every employee to make everybody aware that they have a role, that they have something that they have to do themselves, that their commitment is important. That tree is a call for action to each one as an individual to continue doing what the planet is asking for.
At Zurich, we want our work to inspire people to take a stand for nature. Our new global headquarters in Switzerland is one of the most sustainable buildings in the world, and we aim to implement a sustainable buildings program in an additional 50 offices. We've set ambitious carbon emissions targets for our investment portfolio while also curbing emissions related to underwriting. Our global operations have been carbon neutral since 2014, and we aim to achieve net zero emissions by the end of this decade. We're cutting air travel-related emissions by 70%. We've cut paper consumption, eliminated single-use plastic, and we're turning our car fleet into 100% electric vehicles, and we're committed to using only renewable power worldwide by the end of 2022.
This is the beginning. of a long wave of actions to make the planet sustainable. The others also will take their actions and initiatives. And if all of us on the planet do our contribution, we can save it.
Please welcome to the virtual stage White House climate advisor Gina McCarthy for a conversation with Bloomberg Television's Francine Lacroix.
Gina, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to talk to you for the special episode of Leaders Go Green. Now, after this conversation, we're also going to transform it into a 30-minute TV show so people can watch it again if they wish so. Let me start right off with, the million-dollar question, Gina. Does the war in Ukraine and the world, most of the world, trying to reduce its dependency on Russian oil and gas mean that climate goals will actually be delayed?
Well, I think the president made very clear here that there's two issues that we have to face. Our immediate emergency with Ukraine, which has caused some escalation in the price of gas and oil. And so we really have to address that challenge, at least for the American people who are struggling with those price increases. But at the same time, the president has made it enormously clear that he views the issue of climate change as a significant existential challenge. And his belief is, and he stated it every single time that he's talked about oil and gas prices, is that our only way to have independence, our only way to have security against challenges that dictators like Putin present is to actually grab that clean energy future. That is the only way we're going to make this work. So yes, we have to address the challenge. Yes, the challenge in Ukraine is enormous, but it is a great example of the fact of the instability that can happen when you rely on fossil fuels as your path to the future. It was once, it is no more. Our path now has to be clean energy that we can own, that we can deliver, that will be secure in the future for the American public. That's what the president is all in terms of his efforts to address this challenge.
In the medium term or in the shorter term, and this is a problem of timeline, will they, though, be suspended? If the president asks oil producers to pump more oil, realistically, what does it mean for climate goals in the next 12 months and 24 months?
Well, we haven't slowed down in terms of taking every step that we can. The president set some very aggressive targets. We're not going to use this to slow down our ability to address that. Last year alone, we had the biggest year ever on wind and solar and battery storage. We have 56 million homes that are powered with clean energy. We have a bipartisan infrastructure law that is all about investing $1.2 trillion in that clean energy future. And so we don't think we should stop. We don't think we should slow down. The challenge for us is to recognize that these world challenges will arise, but every country needs to keep its sight on where it's heading. And the United States of America is doing that. We continue to plow forward with a whole of government approach. We are continuing to actually restore environmental safeguards and climate safeguards that the prior administration put aside. And we're going to keep doing that. I don't think we should use this current situation as anything other than a wake-up call that we need to focus more and more on the development of clean energy in the United States and across the world.
But will the transition take longer or be more difficult? So you're increasing domestic oil and gas production, sticking with your stated climate goals. So do you need better technology to then, continue the transition much quicker? Or what does it give us in terms of time?
Yeah. Well, the effort that we're focusing on in Ukraine is the effort to get more natural gas, LNG, out to Europe and other countries that need it, our allies. And that can be done with already existing in place platforms that are active and moving forward. So we have not expanded new entrees into this system, as opposed to focus on where we move forward and how we support our allies during this crisis. So I don't think this needs to be a step back or a pause or a delay. In fact, we're continuing with our goal of achieving 50% reductions by 2030 in many of our sectors moving forward. And we're actually having some great success. We're having great success in offshore wind, where we now actually have a vibrant opportunity ahead of us with permits issued and moving forward. Offshore leases, the most recent one in New York and New Jersey coast actually accrued more than $4 billion. This is serious efforts moving forward. On our public lands, we've increased our renewable energy by 36%. We know what we have to do. We're staying focused. You know, the EV challenge that we thought would be so difficult to move forward on, and we had to push with those car sectors, actually proved to be the best opportunity ever to actually strengthen and get the strongest energy efficiency standards for vehicles ever. We now have $100 billion in investments from car companies in manufacturing in the U.S. again. So we are looking at every sector as opportunities to actually do a couple of things, Francine. One is to create new jobs, really good paying union jobs where we can get them. We're looking at making sure we focus on environmental justice in those communities that haven't been invested in. And you'll see that with every expense investment that we're making from the bipartisan infrastructure law and across the agencies. And we want to make sure that we're focused on actually moving forward with people understanding that these are huge opportunities for us to actually make a healthy communities for them, to actually have energy efficient homes, cities that work for them, transportation systems that can deliver clean air. And so we're hoping that the United States will really focus on what's right for people today, that actually is building the platform for clean energy moving forward. It's no longer about sacrifice, Francine. There's too much good stuff out there, new technologies, opportunities, and we're going to invigorate people. We're going to give them hope again. We're going to move this forward in a way that will really produce benefits for our families. Consumers will save money every step of the way.
And Gina, I know you're saying you've achieved a lot, and certainly there was a lot of promises at the beginning. You have so much drive and energy, and I always hear the fact that, you know, Gina McCarthy is one of the people that's really trying to do a lot of change. But can the Biden administration still achieve the commitment to cut emissions 50% by 2030 without the $555 billion in climate spending contained in the stalled Build Back Better Act?
Well, Francine, you're right. The president is looking not just at what we can do, but he's looking to push Congress to actually go that next step. We actually do need investments in tax credits. We do need investments in consumers, for example, those that are buying EVs, because we want every community and every individual family to be able to afford these types of vehicles and good homes and clean cities moving forward. So the bipartisan infrastructure law has given us a tremendous boost. So it's not like we're slowing down or we've slowed down, because we haven't. We are still making huge progress, even in the manufacturing sector, which is so important for us to restore. But we need more from Congress. Do we need $550 billion? Maybe not. Do we need some core tax credits and some core consumer credits for the American people to be able to succeed? We do need those, and we expect to be able to achieve them. Those conversations are continuing, Francine. I wish we already had it over the finish line, but we will get there because it's the best thing to do for the American people. And if folks in Congress are there to serve them, this is what will come out of it.
This is a huge deal, right? The White House had estimated that the stalled Build Back Better Act would have cut U.S. emissions by a gigaton. What is the current status negotiations on the next version of that bill with Congress? What are you expecting?
Well, we're certainly expecting, and we see that Congress has a number of bills out there that will really be magnificent boosts forward. You know, we have solar bills that are really going to be crucial to continue to advance solar, which, as we all know, is such a winning, inexpensive technology. But we need to make it easier and more plentiful for everybody. And we're working on that, Francine. One of the things that we've realized is that every action we take, we want to make that action be sustainable. You know, we learned from the prior administration that some actions that they took were so easy to undo that we had to make sure we did better. And so part of this is not just to look at Congress to move forward with these key investments for us moving forward, but also we want to make sure that we're working in government to actually change the system. You know, Francine, for too long, climate change was looked at as an issue that was an environmental issue, had to be EPA's, or it's about the Department of the Interior. We're no longer looking at that. We're building systems to actually get our finance systems to actually look at and require businesses to look at what their investments are and what they mean for climate. We are looking to build in systems in our own federal government where our buildings are 100% clean energy in a very short period of time. We're looking at all our vehicles to turn to EVs. We're looking at our ability to actually, and we've set standards for what is the carbon impact from asphalt and cement used in our bipartisan infrastructure investments so that they can be resilient and low carbon, the lowest we can get. So we're looking at every opportunity, not just in Congress, Francine, but we need to build climate into the very ether of how government works at the federal level in concert with local communities, with our tribal communities, our environmental justice communities. So that it's built into the system in a way that's much more durable than ever before. And that's what my office is orchestrating. We do everything across agencies. We do nothing that's individual because we know that this is a multifaceted challenge. And climate change impacts everything we do, and we need to take action in every place that's possible to actually advance our clean energy future.
But are you frustrated by the slow pace this is taking? I mean, I know if we go back to Congress, you know, Senator Joe Manchin has indicated he wants the next iteration of the BBB Act to feature provisions to expand domestic fossil fuel production. Is this not frustrating for someone like you who wants things done and done now to make sure that we reach those goals?
Well, you know, I have to say, Francine, that I'm probably one of the most obnoxious human beings in terms of I want everything and I want it now. In many ways, I'm like my grandchildren that I try to teach them a little patience, and that doesn't work because I'm talking out of the other side of my mouth, Francine. Of course, I want it to be done now, but I've also worked in government for like 40 years. I get that it takes time, and I don't think we've lost anything so far because we have moved forward on this irreversible path to clean energy. We have set tough standards. We're meeting those standards. When we left Glasgow, we immediately took on HFCs and methane. The president just announced a forestry executive order that he unveiled yesterday that's going to be making sure that we're involved in getting rid of this deforestation, this illegal deforestation that we've been seeing. So we're not losing any step in terms of our ability to take action. In fact, we've really moved forward in a way that's quite historic. That in the bipartisan infrastructure law, that's $1.2 trillion. We've already put out $45 billion. That's going to get us everything from work on environmental justice challenges with clean water, with reducing pollution, with electric vehicle charging stations, 500,000 of them. We've attracted new EV manufacturing dollars. So we're not losing steps, but we need to get more action on the Hill. So there's no question that it has to happen. And there's no question that we have to push for it. The only question is when. And I think we're not frustrated by any of these conversations. We're still busy. We're working. We're getting stuff done. But we do need to have this wrapped up, and hopefully soon, so that the American people can see that not just this administration, but Congress is all in on this effort, because they understand that these challenges can't wait.
We're about 6 months away from midterm elections, Gina. That could also change the congressional landscape and could actually change what could be achieved on climate legislatively. So how do you view a possible carbon tax and border adjustment taxes?
Yeah, well, we've been working very creatively on this, Francine, because, obviously there are folks on the Hill who are looking at carbon taxes and other ways to put a price on carbon. We are actively making sure that we're investing in that shift to clean energy, because that shift will allow consumers to save money, more jobs to grow, investments in environmental justice communities. So there's yin and yang in all of these various challenges and initiatives moving forward. But the most important thing for the president is to make sure that everything is on the table. Congress gets to do business. But in this administration, we are going to focus on actually making investments that matter, investments that will build this clean energy future. And so we're open to a lot of things. One of the most exciting areas we have is in our industrial sector, in our manufacturing sector. We have been working with the EU to develop an international agreement where we look at carbon content of cement and asphalt and aluminum, all of the various ways in which we can work internationally to actually reduce carbon emissions and make the countries that have the cleanest, the ones that actually have those arrangements and win in those arrangements. So there's ways in which we're thinking about these challenges very differently, like with CBMs, which I just explained.
So what would it take? This is the toughest question I'm going to ask you, maybe. What would it take for the administration to support a carbon tax?
The administration hasn't been opposed to a carbon tax, but a carbon tax requires congressional action. And if I may say that, I'm not sure that carbon taxes are always the most efficient mechanism in every sector. And so we want to make sure that we're not adding burden on consumers without providing those reductions in greenhouse gases. So we've seen the EU and others have carbon taxes. That's a great approach for them. The question is, has it resulted in significant reductions as much as the investment strategies that we're already doing domestically and that Congress is considering? So it's on the table. It requires congressional action. If that's the choice of Congress, we'll certainly go all in. But in the meantime, it doesn't mean our hands are tied. It just means we have other opportunities, like actually getting domestic offshore wind industry rolling forward, which is really going at a pace that's incredible. We have 100 new actions on energy efficiency for homes. We have actually state and local governments working with us on building sector so that we can start making sure that we're building homes for the future as well as today. So we're going to keep moving forward and not take any of these issues off the table. And in fact, recognize that, the innovation that we're seeing today is actually quite remarkable. You could see it in the electric vehicles that we thought would be a struggle. And it was automakers and auto workers joining hand in hand and spending money, investing in that future. But I do think there's a lot more that we can do domestically to actually set the pace. But we're not taking anything off the table. In fact, we're looking for every new creative opportunity we can find.
So let me talk about technology in a second, but I also want to ask you about solar. The U.S. solar industry is warning of widespread disruptions, canceled projects, delayed deployments because of the tariff circumvention probe at the Commerce Department. They're actually worried about, of course, how much solar they can deliver in terms of energy. Are you worried?
Well, last year we had another banner year, and we're going to do everything we can to work through these issues with the solar sector. There's no question that the investigation has slowed down our ability to get panels into the U.S. The president is aware of that. We're looking at every opportunity we can to make sure that we're both, taking the action we need on forced labor, but we're doing it in a way that allows our solar sector to continue to move forward. Francine, one of the key issues is that the U.S. has lost manufacturing jobs. We actually lost our domestic solar manufacturing capability over the time of the last administration. We need to build that back. So part of the challenge is we need to start investing in our manufacturing sector again. And one of those key sectors are in solar. We simply need to start making solar here in the United States. And we're working with the sector. Well, the solar companies recognize that there's a challenge. They certainly don't want to have any kind of a negative impact on our efforts to address forced labor. But they also know that they have to step up, and we all have to start investing together in building that supply chain here in the United States.
Jen, what are you most excited about technology? Is there a piece of technology that when we get that, actually it will be adapting renewable energies much quicker? Is there something in the next 2 years that you can't wait to see?
Well, there are so many. Francine, I don't know if you've ever met Secretary Jennifer Granholm from our Department of Energy, but if there's anybody that has more energy than that woman, I've never met them because she's just amazing. And I think we have these energy earth shots on clean hydrogen, green hydrogen. That is an amazing opportunity especially in our industrial area. We have to make sure that our industries can get clean. Energy storage is a big deal. We're looking at the development of critical minerals that are going to be essential for battery technology. So we're looking at now even a sustainable aviation grand challenge we have moving forward. We had our first commercial airline flight that was actually powered by biofuels. We're looking at fusion technology. We just had a White House summit on that. We're looking at both the current domestic fleet of nuclear, but also on how we look at these new smaller units. And people are actually investing in these in ways that I think just tell us that innovation has moved at an incredible pace in the United States for a long time and elsewhere. If we focus our attention on some key areas that are now difficult for us, and we move forward and embrace those with the kind of resources that we actually have available now that the bipartisan infrastructure law gave us, we are going to see technology really escalate in a way that's going to allow us opportunities that, again, don't require a burden on consumers, but actually give them tremendous benefits and grow industries again. We need things made in America. We need our own labor. To move forward, we need to build back our country from the bottom up and the middle out. And that's what this is all about. This is not just a climate strategy. This is a climate strategy embedded in an economic strategy that will allow the U.S. to win the 21st century clean energy economy.
Gina, there are rumors that you might want to step down. I'm not going to ask you about that directly, but you've had a hard job. You've been working at this for more than a year. You've made significant initial progress on auto emissions, on HFCs, on methane. You also have quite a lot of work left to do, including getting climate legislation, this critical clean energy tax incentives through Capitol Hill. What do you think you need to accomplish before you'll feel okay handing off the work?
Oh, Lord, I'll probably never feel okay because it ain't done yet. But as you can see, I remain so youthful. I'm just going to keep moving forward. I know that as time goes on, so do my wrinkles increase, but it hasn't really impacted me in terms of my hope, my energy level. I think we are on the cusp of, as we just talked about, innovations that are available to us today and in the immediate future. We just have to keep working on them. So no, I'm not going anywhere fast. But I realize that, like everybody else, I'm time limited, and I'll give it my best while I'm here, and I'll keep trying to get some big things over the finish line. And we'll see where all of this heads, but I'm pretty excited about what I'm seeing so far.
You're one of the real leaders when it comes to tackling climate change. What drives you? How do you measure success?
I measure success, I think, by, how people feel about whether they think that a lot of my effort has been government service. I want people to feel like that government is working for them. One of the best things about the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is really quite transformative, is that it gives us an ability in communities to show that we're investing in them again. It gives us an ability to reach out to environmental justice communities and our tribal leaders in ways that we've never been able to actually effectively create the kind of partnerships that are going to matter. There is a tremendous ability now, I think, to restore government's leadership role and to do that in a way that works with our state and local communities. Because for too long, our state and local communities have been the only game in town. During the prior administration, they tried to hold the line. I don't want that to be the tone or tenor anymore. Success needs to be, I'm grabbing that future. Success needs to be, we can win this battle. And while we're doing that, we're going to lift the very individuals that have always been overburdened by pollution, over-challenged by lack of investment, and figure out how we can grow the strongest democracy that we can by giving voice to the people. And, I'm just a consummate public servant. It's what I've always done. It's what I've always loved to do, and I'll keep doing it for a while.
Do you still come across climate deniers, Gina, and how do you speak to them? How do you talk to them? Do you engage?
Say that again?
Do you still come across climate deniers, climate change deniers?
Yeah.
How do you engage with them?
I maybe they just avoid me, which is probably good, because I might do that myself in the other direction. But I'm not coming across a lot of folks that are denying climate. One of the best parts of translating this clean energy challenge into opportunities for jobs, environmental justice communities, and one of the biggest ways in which we can actually make progress is to make sure that we're not fighting over the problem. We're actually pushing forward solutions that are better for everyone. I think that's the key. And that's why the framing of President Biden, who is really a people person, that's what he thinks of. The framing of this being better today as well as tomorrow just makes that discussion of climate denial insignificant. And frankly, we are already seeing another wildfire season started up. We're already looking at droughts that have continued to persist for years. We are looking at challenges with heat where we lost thousands of lives. We are talking about that in the Pacific Northwest. This is not the kind of challenge that I think any of us can ignore. So climate denial was a strategy before. It can't be anymore. And saying that we can't afford to actually invest in a clean energy future is no longer a viable tenet for anybody to suggest. We are getting beaten to a pulp by billions of dollars in expenses every year in the challenges that we face. We need to build a resilient infrastructure. We have resources to make huge progress on that now. We're going to show people that we are embracing this climate challenge, and we're going to turn it into every single opportunity we can for them today to feel good about where they live, what we're doing, how we're thinking about their lives and their children's future. And that's how we're going to win this.
Gina, thank you so much for your time today. Gina McCarthy, everyone.
Thanks, Francine. Great to be here. Thanks, Bloomberg.